There's like the satisfaction of punching Trump in the face because he represents a threat to everything that we love and care about.
Yeah.
But then you gotta you can't just stop there. You gotta connect it to people's lives. And that means that sometimes the attack that might feel the most satisfying, it ultimately winds up not landing in the right way.
Hello and welcome to the Bulwark Podcast. I'm your host, Tim Miller. It is debate day. Everybody's excited. Nobody's at all anxious or nervous. Nobody is at all panicked. Nobody's menturating their underwear.
We're all vibes, Tim. We're all vibes. And
yeah,
they're all good.
I used to, well, hold on. I'll tell you what I used to do after I introduced my guest, Kate Bedingfield. I wanted to have somebody that knows Joe Biden, knows debate prep. She was White House communications director for Joe Biden until she left for the finer pastures of CNN. She was also deputy campaign manager in 2020. Kate, what's going on, girl?
Hi. Thanks for having me.
I used to vomit on debate day. Did you ever dry heave or puke before a candidate debate?
I cannot say that I actively puked, although I think there were some instances where it came very close. Yes. The whole debate day situation, you're like, and you've been through the prep, you're like anxious for the candidate. Is he going to land this great thing? God, we have this great thing teed up. Is he going to crush the thing? Then there's the spin room after and all of that insanity. And if you're a comm staffer out, making your way through the spin room, it's, its own level of misery. So, debate days are, they're intense. They're intense.
Okay. So my tradition seems like it was maybe a little different for you. My tradition was about 2 hours out when I was finished with the last prep session. I would go, close your ears, Mom. I'd chain smoke 2 Parliament Light cigarettes, and then I would try to pull the trigger, and I'd like dry heave in the bathroom, and then I would drink a Coca-Cola and put some mints in my mouth, and I would be kind of ready to go from there.
I wish we'd had this conversation earlier when I was still doing debate prep, because that seems like a hell of a routine, and I think I might have benefited from it.
All right, so we have to start obviously. With the most serious topic related to your former boss, and the question is, what drug regimen is he on? Is it the Khalifa Kush? Would you say the magic mushroom bonbon, the 2 CMC pills?
I mean, if I told you, I'd be giving up the game. So I mean,
LSD stars.
I can't do that. It's a special cocktail, that is calibrated for him. Mm-hmm. And, and I think America's going to see it on display tonight. It's going to be great.
The one thing, obviously, Joe Biden is a teetotaler, and we're joking.
Yes,
it is interesting, though. It is, the debate is at 9 Eastern. Mm-hmm. It ends at 10:30. That's past Papa's bedtime. That's a little late. Is there? Does he do a non-narcotics?
Okay.
Like, is he a coffee drinker or anything?
Okay, here's the thing. He loves late nights. Like when we used to come home from domestic trips too, but foreign trips especially. And this was like even back in VP days when it's sort of like easier for him to like move about the cabin in the plane. Sure. You would be flying home, you're tired, you're asleep, and here comes Vice President Biden to say, you know what, we didn't get to that I really want to focus on the next trip. And what did you think about this thing that I said? Do you think that was that effective, or would you say that wasn't effective? And can we go in depth on how effective you think that was? And it's like, you're at the end of a long day, you're tired, and he's just raring to go. So he actually is a night person. So I'm not as worried about the late start time for him. He'll get some good rest today, and I think he'll be ready to go.
That explains the Morning Joe viewership that has been reported on. It's like he's out late. He's brainstorming in the morning. Honestly, like me and the president, I guess, are maybe more on the same schedule. Kind of want to lay around the bed a little bit in the morning. Flip through the channels.
He gets into the gym. It's like 8:00 hour. That's like he's in the gym. He's watching Morning Joe. So. But he does good thinking at night. So we'll see. There are elements of the debate that make me anxious. That is actually not one of them, because it actually aligns with his natural rhythm.
Before we get to this debate, let's just kind of do a little bit of memory lane and just, talk about his process and what, I have different, we've all worked for a bunch of different candidates. We both have. And, some of them want some zingers. like
Yeah.
you practice some zingers.
Yep.
Some of my candidates wanted to spend hours discussing policy matters that would never actually come up during the debate.
Yeah.
We won't name them, John Huntsman. Some other candidates wanted to live, kind of so how did you guys do it in the primary? And I guess you were there also in the general last
Yeah,
year.
I was.
Yeah.
I was. So he has a very methodical process. He likes to spend a lot of time going through all of the issues that he thinks are going to come up. And so there's before you get to the mock debates, which he does and kind of understands the value of having to, stand behind the podium and go through the whole format and do it with no stops. And, he gets the value of that. He doesn't like that as much as he likes sitting down with the team, going through Q&A, workshopping answers. He views it as certainly like brushing up on policy, yes, but it's less about, for him, it's less about like memorizing facts and figures that may or may not come up or be relevant during the debate, and more just about kind of talking through with his team, talking out loud, thinking out loud. Like he thinks as the country I think has learned a little bit, like he thinks out loud,
Yeah.
he's working through things, he likes to talk and get feedback. So a big chunk of I would say probably like 75 to 80% of the debate prep process with him is sitting around a table, going through answers, people taking his feedback, recrafting the answer. You come back for another session. He tries it out. He says like, no, actually, I don't think that's right, or that's not the way I want it. And then the last kind of, 25% is doing some of those mock run throughs, which is about like standing behind the podium and going through the answers, yes, but also practicing, kind of for the camera, and what's your body language going to be like, and mimicking what that's going to look like, and recognizing that ultimately the debate is for a TV audience, and making sure that he's kind of ready to present to a TV audience.
Yeah. What about the bad orange man side of things?
Yeah.
Because this was something that it took. I mean, you didn't have as many practice runs in the primary with Jeb. I mean, there must have been, if there were 2 debates, there were 3,070. I don't remember how many there actually were, but there were a lot of, and it took us a while to just help Jeb process that he's dealing with a different animal here, right? And somebody he is just going to spout a fire hose of nonsense, and it is not like debating Lawton Childs. You can't rebut every point that he has, right? You gotta pick one and lean in on it. You got to counterpunch. How'd you guys think about dealing with Trump in 2020?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure it won't surprise you to learn that a big piece of the prep for Trump in 2020 was going through the personal attacks, the family stuff, the things that, essentially no other candidate or, person of any level of decency would say or raise on a debate stage, but knowing full well that Donald Trump would. And so, it creates an interesting environment. And I give Joe Biden a lot of credit for this in the process in 2020. He was always very open to and willing to let people come at him with the horrible things that Donald Trump might say, and it can create a weird dynamic, right? Here's the president of the United States.
Definitely. I definitely have had candidates get mad at me for bringing up personal things.
Yes, I had the distinct honor in the primary debate process in 2019 when I was playing a candidate of having Joe Biden accuse me of enjoying it too much. So So, it can create a weird dynamic, but he was very willing to, he recognized that he needed to absorb what that was going to feel like, and not have, the first time Donald Trump said something horrific about his son, be on the debate stage in front of millions, tens of millions of people. So that was a big piece of the process, a depressingly big piece of the process, considering, you're preparing for debate for, president of the United States, and that's what you have to focus on. But that was a big piece of it. And then the other kind of bizarre piece of it, which you know well too, I'm sure, is you also, you also have to account for the 16 different versions of Donald Trump's position on an issue, and trying to, anticipate, which lie he's going to tell, which way he's going to present himself. I mean, there's very little consistency, in the way he talks about himself. So preparing for a debate against somebody who, baseline, you're not even really certain which, version of their take on an issue is going to show up on the stage, it's a weird process. So, we tried to apply some method to the madness and, kind of get things organized for Biden in his head so that he had a clear sense of home base on the big issues. But it was a unique process, and I can't even imagine what it's like for them this go around.
Yeah, I'm interested in that. So this challenge of dealing with Trump, right? Like, is he, takes every side of everything, and there are a lot of angles. There's one side of this that it seems like the campaign has really settled in on, as far as a message standpoint, that I'm interested in your take on, which is that this idea that something broke in Donald Trump at the end of 2020, that he's gone even crazier, and that he's totally lost it. And at one point he might have cared about other people, but now he cares about himself. Something to that effect. I assume you'll hear something like that tonight. You've been hearing it more and more from the president and from his campaign. Oh. Like, that is a strategic choice to do that, right? I mean,
yeah,
it might not be true. Like, just as a fact. I mean, I'm like of the view that like Trump's been kind of crazy and racist his whole life. But it's interesting. So I'm curious what you think about that choice and what the rationale is.
Yeah. I mean, I think to me, it seems like it's twofold. I mean, one, just as a message choice for the campaign, I think it's a way of trying to jolt people out of their kind of light nostalgia for the Trump years. Like, if you're somebody who says like, well, there were things I didn't like about Trump, but, the economy was okay. And I don't know, was he really that dangerous? There's some, I think their campaign brings some urgency by saying like, look, this isn't even the guy that you saw in, 2018, 2019. He's so, we've since seen January 6th. We've seen him go, crazy trying to defend himself from, criminal wrongdoing. I mean, he's worse than you remember. I mean, I think that's from a message perspective. One of the things they're trying to do is kind of, knock the edges off of people's nostalgia about him. From a debate strategy standpoint, you could imagine how that's a tactic to try to irritate Trump, try to get under Trump's skin, try to get him, fired up, try to get him defending himself. I mean, really, like anything that Joe Biden can do to get Donald Trump going, it almost doesn't matter what direction you get him going in. You just got to get him going. And so, you can imagine that calling him unhinged, saying he's completely lost it, especially as Trump has spent the last 3 years, 4 years, trying to argue that Joe Biden's lost a step. You could see the way that could get under Trump's skin, but I guess we'll all find out.
Feeling overwhelmed by the state of politics? Finding it hard to get motivated? You might be suffering from erectile dysfunction, but Pod Save America has got the cure. Talk to your doctor about tuning into Pod Save America every Tuesday, Wednesday now, and Friday for a real talk conversation about the latest, biggest election of our lives, and zero old guys yelling at you about the kids these days. Where else can you get that guarantee? Nowhere. Listen and subscribe to Pod Save America on your favorite podcast platform or watch on YouTube. Pod Save America is not approved by the FDA. Yeah, so to that point, and I think that many people will be listening to this before the debate, but some after. So both tonight at the debate and the biggest picture for the campaign, like there are just so many places to attack Donald Trump. It's like you see these advice things from pundits. It's like, he should get him on the suckers and losers comment. Like he should get him on Officer Sicknick. He should get him on abortion. He should get him on Medicare. Okay, so there's plenty of material there. Yeah. Like, what if you were sitting in the debate prep room, or if you're thinking about the campaign towards the end, what are you honing in on?
Yeah, well, I think you got to funnel all of these attacks through 2 or 3 of the lenses that have shown themselves to be his biggest vulnerabilities. Abortion is one. It just is. I mean, we've seen it turn voters out to the polls. We've actually seen people in elections in this country go out and vote because they feel motivated by the fact that Roe fell. So, I think that has got to be a huge piece of his line of attack, because it's also an issue where you can draw a through line between Donald Trump being president of the United States and us being in the state we're in now with, women no longer having the right to reproductive freedom. I mean, it is one of the easiest cases to make. And obviously Trump has spent a lot of time trying to kind of weasel his way out of his position, because he knows he's politically vulnerable on it. But, you gotta hammer. I think that the other lens that the campaign needs to apply to every line of attack against Trump is this an attack that goes at how Donald Trump makes life worse for people across this country? Like, there's a lot you can attack Trump for that's about, what an awful person he is, how he's, how he's like, shouldn't be representing the United States of America, that he represents a break from everything that we love and care about in this country. But I think that ultimately, for a message to land with voters, it has to feel like it has resonance in your day-to-day life. And so, there are some attacks that may feel like great to the chattering class and may feel like an absolute slam dunk that just don't, that don't connect in the same way. So I think it's like you got to make the chaos argument, but then you got to take it down to the next level of, this is how this is going to make your life worse. It's how it's going to make life more expensive for you. It's how it's going to take away your right to vote and feel like your vote matters and it will be counted safely. I just think the campaign cannot lose, and Biden can't lose that last step, right? There's the satisfaction of punching Trump in the face because he represents a threat to everything that we love and care about.
Yeah.
But then you gotta you can't just stop there. You gotta connect it to people's lives. And that means that sometimes the attack that might feel the most satisfying, it ultimately winds up not landing in the right way. And
so you don't think the zinger I sent Ben LeBolt about the Raffensperger call in Georgia is what not what we're talking about?
And I'm not saying that isn't in and of itself should not be disqualifying for Donald Trump to be president of the United States. But I think, we also have to accept that not everybody in the country is thinking about these things in the same way that we are.
So I'm curious what you think about this. There's this conundrum that I've been working over in my brain and talking to people about on the podcast when you look at the data. And it's the fact that the president is running behind Democratic senators in all of these swing states. Mm-hmm. Casey, Baldwin, Gallego. And it's like, okay, why? Like, on the one hand, you could look at that as a very big negative, right? It's like, something must be really wrong if these people are switching over. On the other hand, it might be a positive, right? Where it's like, man, if Joe Biden shows them tonight that he cares about, the things they care about, that he's not, dementia riddled, then maybe you can win some of those people back. Like, what's your sense for what the disconnect is? And what do you think they need to do to try to consolidate that demo?
I think they have such a difficult and just frustrating challenge here, because I think the message for the most part is right. And I think if you look at a lot of the testing, you see that, he's talking about corporations having too much power. He's talking about prices are too high at the grocery store and I'm doing everything I can to bring them down. He's talking about choice. And if you look at message testing, you see that that's what people want to hear from Democrats. So is there a disconnect between message and messenger? And then if so, how do you solve for if people are hearing what they want to hear, but they have concerns about or qualms about or just can't get there for whatever reason on the messenger? So I think they, over the next 4 months after this debate, I think they have to really think about how they put Biden out in front of audiences who can connect with him. I think there has to be less standing behind the podium, and there has to be more Howard Stern, right? I mean, I just think there have to be, and I think that the team knows that, by the way. This is not me it's so great, right? It's so great to be in the pundit role where you said,
welcome. Isn't it lovely?
I'm like, God.
I literally, I cringed when I sent a thought to somebody on the campaign the other day, and I was like, I'm that guy now.
Right.
I'm that guy that I hated.
Exactly.
Anyway.
I'm grappling with becoming the person I hated, but damn, the lack of responsibility is terrific.
It is nice.
No, but and I do think the campaign knows that, but I think that it matters, because I think there's so much potential for Biden as a person to assuage these concerns that people are holding on to about him. And I think it's putting him in venues like Stern, and doing more digital where he can connect directly with people and not relying so much on the podium remarks that can be really powerful, but that just because of the state of our media landscape just don't reach people the way they used to. But I also think this point about like Senate candidates running ahead. I mean, I also think at the end of the day, split ticket voting is a rarer occurrence than, it even used to be. And I just have a hard time believing that when push comes to shove, there are going to be a significant number of Democrats who are going to vote for the Senate candidate, but not for Biden. But it's a challenge.
Maybe.
Campaign has to focus.
Arizona might be unique in that regard, but I agree. Yeah. What about the age part of it? I mean, can people have real talk with him? I mean, it could just be that, right? It could just be that he's got to show up tonight and demonstrate that he has the vigor for this. I mean, obviously, it's not like he doesn't know that he's old, but like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, and I think he will. Look, he is very much a game day player, okay? Yeah. Like, he's somebody who knows when the big moment is coming. I mean, I think the whole country saw it around the State of the Union, but he knows when a big moment is in front of him, and he, focuses and prepares, and he knows that his task here, at least in part, is to show energy and vigor. And so, I don't have any
Can we stop with the whisper talk? Can we tell him to whisper?
I mean, that's been a trademark for 50 years.
I know. I loved it. It was good when it was good. Sometimes it's hard to move away from something that was, part of your brand. One of these days, I'm going to have to take off the pearls.
Yeah, right?
Like, Tim, it's looking cringe. It's starting to look cringe.
Where's the coterie of advisors around you who can be honest with you, Tim, about the pearls? Where are those people?
Okay. That's my tip, the whisper talk. All right. I'm lobbing a softball at you here. Okay. But on the Bulwark Reddit page, which I love, people should join the Bulwark Reddit page if they haven't. It feels like it might be our more lefty people, listeners that go to the Reddit page, but that's okay. I like hearing from the lefty listeners. We do a decent amount of complaining around here about the urgency from Biden world, and I think maybe it's just that, like, as the never Trumpers, as like the near enemy of Trump, we might feel just a different level of panic, like sheer hatred and panic that's on a different level. And one thing we say is like, everybody should be out there. Like, where is everybody? I mean, like, we had a good JB Pritzker thing the other day, and there are little glimmers of people getting out there. It's like, where's the cabinet? Where's Kamala prosecuting it? And where are all the Republican endorsers? And somebody wrote on the Bulwark page, it goes, "Hear me out. Is it possible that the Biden campaign knows what it's doing? Could the lack of forceful surrogates be that they know that trotting them out this early isn't as effective?" So what do you think? Could we see more urgency? Do they know what they're doing? Is it somewhere in between?
So, okay, yes, they know what they're doing. I'm just gonna like put myself out there and say, yes.
I'm shocked that was your response.
I know you're stunned.
That's really a hard one.
I know you're stunned. That's my answer. But I worked very closely with a lot of these people, was in the trenches with them through a very hard primary campaign, through a very hard general election campaign. Like, they know what they're doing. So I have faith. In them. I also think it is true that people are not as tuned in to this election right now, and that they will be as we get closer and closer. I think this debate will mark a turning point. I think we've seen a lot of data that suggests a lot of people are going to watch tonight, but even those who don't watch are going to hear about it. They're going to see clips. It's going to feel, I think, in a lot of ways like the kind of unofficial starting gun for the final sprint here. So yes, I imagine we're going to see more and more of these surrogates. I mean, I would argue you've seen VP Harris out there, like, really, pushing the case on abortion. She's been a terrific messenger for the administration and the Biden campaign on abortion. And I have no doubt that you will see more and more of these folks out as we get closer into the fall, when people are paying attention.
All right. I hope so. I get it. It might just be me. It could be me. I would still like to see a little bit more urgency. One more thing on the VP question, though. I asked Simone about this, Simone Sanders Townsend, earlier this week. I hear you on the abortion thing. She's been good on it. Abortion is important. I really like, by the way, as somebody that is, has like mixed views, is I think in the big middle of this country where a lot of people are, that there should be some restrictions on abortion, but not with the crazy shit that they're doing in some of these red states. I like that the Biden campaign's ads on this have like focused a lot on women who like wanted to have a child, but had a health issue that they were denied. Okay. So I like all that. VP Harris, though, also was a prosecutor. Like, she became a star as in those Senate hearings when she was prosecuting witnesses and Kavanaugh, etc. I don't like shouldn't we have a little bit more of that, like prosecutor, cop Kamala out there, making doing the traditional VP attack dog thing.
You mean in terms of attacking
against Trump versus Trump? Yeah.
Well, I think so. One, I guess I would dispute the premise a little bit that she's not carrying a pretty significant, heavy message against Trump. I think she is, but I also think there's, I'm going to knock you over with a feather here, but people have different perceptions of women than men on the campaign trail. And, you have
Simone gave that answer too. I know. Right. It just misses my male privilege. I'm just like, maybe that's true, but I want to see her with Trump's bloody shirt in her mouth. I want to see her kill him.
I mean, so do I. But that's a lot of the country doesn't receive women that way. Simone's totally right about that. And so it doesn't mean that VP Harris can't carry an effective negative message. I would argue she's been doing it. And I imagine as we get closer to November, you'll see her do it more. But these are the things that you have to be aware of when you're thinking about the image of a woman in public office and a female candidate. It's just a slightly different ballgame than it is for men. Someday, Tim, I hope it won't be. And someday, you will have women candidates accepted when they're out there shredding their opponent with a bloody shirt in their mouth. But right now, it's not quite that simple.
Yeah, when my daughter's running for mayor of New Orleans, I'm going to be feeding her. I'm going to be feeding her punchlines. I'm going to be feeding her, and we'll be ready by then. Okay.
And I hope she's crushed. I hope she crushes her male opponent.
Same. All right. Last question. Give us something cute. Give us a cute Biden story. Does he have a favorite ice cream flavor? If we wanted to send them some Jennies, is there? Did you have a fun little behind the scenes laugh moment? Give me something. Give me a little. Man. Give me a little something to make, just something cuddly. A handhold. I always think I'm gonna tell his Jeb story to give you a minute to think about it. I just thought the cutest thing I ever saw with Jeb was we were leaving a debate and we were in the one of those Suburbans or whatever, and I'm in the last row and he's in the second row with Kalumba, and they're holding hands in the second row from the debate to the FBO, and I was oh my God, they've been together 50 years. That's so cute. Yes. So anyway, do you have a cute story?
Sweet. Oh, I mean, my God, if you want to talk about him and Jill, I mean, he's constantly calling her, he wants to know her opinion on everything. It's they don't go hours without talking to each other, which I think is amazing. But he's also he's very, okay, for example, when we were during the primaries, we were on a plane, we were landing in Iowa, and it was super turbulent. And I don't love flying generally, and I definitely don't love flying on a small plane, and I definitely don't love flying on a small plane in turbulence. And so, it's turbulent, we're landing, and my many male colleagues who I love dearly, were kind of making fun of me for being a wimp, and I'm gripping the, arm of my chair. And Biden just reaches over and puts his hand on top of mine. And he's it's going to be okay. We're going to be fine. It's all right. But he has there's an element of pop, grandpop, he brings a genuine humanity and kindness to all of his interactions. So, he's just what you see is what you get. There's no artifice with Joe Biden. He's a genuinely kind person. And he loves chocolate chip ice cream. That's his favorite. And he will direct the motorcade out of, off route to get to chocolate chip ice cream. I can't tell you how many times that happened.
Chocolate chip is a good flavor. I wish he'd put his hand on my hand right now because we're in turbulent times. That was a metaphor. That was a metaphor for our life.
Okay, Tim.
Thank you, Kate.
I mean, we'll see.
That was beautiful. I will be seeing you in the spin room. We're both in Atlanta together. So I'll see you in the spin room in 3D in a little bit. We can do a squeeze. Thank you so much for coming on the Bulwark Podcast. Come back again soon.
Would love to. Thank you.